Welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the Sagittarius new moon, which occurs across the 19th or the 20th of December, depending on location, and at 28 degrees 24, the third successive new moon at 28 degrees. Sagittarius energy is bright, it's optimistic, it's about travel, opening things up, and exploring. It can also be very much about adventurism. What do we want to free ourselves from? That's what the new moon in Sagittarius would normally urge us to do. But this year, the new moon occurring so late in the sign, only the day before the winter solstice and the sun's transition into Capricorn, is also clashing with the rather rugged and restrictive energies of Saturn and the dreamlike distorting energies of Neptune in a square. Also, the sun and the moon, as they forge their alliance, are in a jarring relationship with Uranus, the planet of freedom, higher truths, in the part of our overall situation, which can be to do with our values, everyday money. So how's this going to play out for us all? New moons are a chance for us to set our intentions, but this one has a unique personality that I'm going to unpack for you. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. A very warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. All your views, interactions, comments and likes are truly appreciated. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so now and help us to continue to grow. Please also click or tap the bell notification symbol. Quickly, year 2026 is racing towards us, so you can order your personal forecast for next year by seeing the link beneath this video, but also you'll get your life roadmap report. Combination of the two will help you to plot your moves over the next year in just the right way. Also, you'll get my free gift of your zodiacal general, love, Chinese and Indian forecast when you receive your charts. You can also watch my deep dive for each of the 12 zodiac signs for the year ahead by seeing the link below too. So at 28 degrees 44, the sun and the moon forge an alliance. If you like, the sun is the king and the moon is the queen. The sun's very much about vigour, actualising what we want. The moon's very much about being receptive, more sensitive, more nurturing, and in Sagittarius is very much more of a truth seeker, I feel. So that's an interesting combination. But what about the exact timing of the event across the world? So I'm showing on the screen now exactly where that occurs. And also if you are a late mutable zodiac sign, so that would be in order Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius itself and Pisces. And if you do have influences from about 25 degrees through to 29 degrees, 59 and 59, you are going to feel this event that much more keenly. But how will you feel it? I'm going to share with you the event chart from a zodiacal viewpoint, but also from a natal perspective too, because that gives us a lot more detail. Not all new moons are the same. As I have said recently, we have all these memes buzzing around, particularly on social media, and it's all about how new moons can be amazing, but this one actually can have some real challenges, as I will share with you. But then I'll go on to go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces, which you can relate to in terms of your ascendant, sun or the moon. So please stay with me for those. Sagittarius then, the 9th zodiac sign. It's a mutable sign, so therefore it flexes, so it can reinvent itself. So its aspirations are quite fluid. But because of the fire energy, that gives a roar. We also need to be conscious that we're in the last decan of the sign of Sagittarius, which is subruled by the sun. So that's good. So the sun feels really in touch with this event. But if you are hoping to jet off somewhere for some snow or for some sun and have a vacation, then obviously Sagittarius new moons can be very helpful to that. But also if we're thinking we want to add to our knowledge, because Sagittarius is the sign of inquisitivity, downloading different perspectives, being intrigued by looking at things in different ways. It's also the sign that influences broadcasting, publishing. If you've got that book that's inside of you that you've thought about, the next month, the period of influence of the new moon, can see you ruminating about that quite seriously. So a lot to like, but what about the other zodiacal influences? Because that's what brings the uniqueness to the event. So on the screen now, I'm showing the event chart from a solar angle. There's the sun and the moon at 28, 24, but we do have Venus pretty close to them as well. And Venus is a truth seeker, but also a freedom lover, and pretty flirty in the sign of Sagittarius as well. Mercury's there, back in the sign. It is in its detriment in the sign of Sagittarius, but look at the position of the ruler, the depositor of the sign of Sagittarius, Jupiter. It may be in its retrograde through to next March, but it is forging a quincunx with the position of Venus. So that's intriguing, because the two planets of fortune, Jupiter the greater and Venus the lesser benefits, are not really on the best of terms. So how will that work out? I think it's possible, to be honest, on that particular influence, that generosity of spirit, our desire to give the best of ourselves, can be heightened by that, and that can make that very very nice. But the angle between the sun and the moon and Uranus just suggests, when it comes to our festive budget, it has been a year when a lot of people have had to tighten up their budgets. We're being asked not to be too challenging to what we've set ourselves in terms of what we can afford. So that more spontaneous, freedom-loving energy of Sagittarius is challenged a little bit, because Uranus itself can be quite impulsive. And I think this chart's saying, don't be too pushed into feeling that we have to give more than we can truly afford. But I think it's Neptune and Saturn that are the real crunch influences on this event. Because if we think the ninth house can be about higher truths and philosophy, international affairs, also borders, trade, and we have Saturn and Neptune in the 12th zodiac sign, which is of the culmination of the whole zodiac. I think whatever hopes we have, and our hopes can be high on this Sagittarius new moon, we need to be aware of what we can't instantly see. So that may, because Saturn and Neptune are in the 12th zodiac sign in traditional astrology, that can be about hidden enemies. So there may be someone, however bubbly and jolly we want to be, very Sagittarius, who's going to receive our energy in a way which can flatten us a little bit, suck all of our levity out of us with their brevity. We can also see that Venus is in the square with Saturn too. So however much we may want to keep things on an even keel when it comes to our relationships over the festivities, if there have been some bubbling and simmering resentments that haven't quite come into the open, they could do so over the next few weeks. And Neptune squaring the sun, I think that's really powerful too. So what Neptune can do is distort, and because the sun and the moon and Mercury are all truth seekers in Sagittarius, what Neptune can do is just bring some distortion, some different type of energies which are hard to pin down. So we may come into contact with someone who has some resentments. It could be our own desire to open up and be more free-spirited, even separate from someone that we're finding difficult to be with. In some ways may be held back or checked, perhaps by our own doubts, our own stuff, our own conditioning, our own way of thinking about things. And Saturn and Neptune together can be quite a draining influence. So I think we need to have very realistic expectations that if we just think it's a new moon and it's in a very positive sign of Sagittarius and everything will be hunky-dory, I think we could be sadly disappointed. So the best way to make this event work for us is have realistic expectations. And Saturn can be useful in that regard. So it's saying, look, if we don't feel we want to join in with every invitation, that doesn't necessarily work for us, then have the trust to do that, to say thank you for thinking of me, I'm not going to come. I've got too much on with the kids, with work, juggling different demands with the family. That's okay, because that energy of freedom and joyfulness, which is there with the Sagittarius energy, it is definitely challenged by Saturn and Neptune for sure. Now, what about the event chart from a natal perspective? Well, the ascendant is in Libra, which can be very diplomatic, but I think what stood out for me straight away on this chart was the fact that Jupiter, the ruler of the sign of Sagittarius, is right up there on that 10th house cusp. So it is the most important player in terms of a connection to the angles. So the 10th house is our connection to the world, and it is in Cancer, so that can be about home, family, property matters, our sense of security, anything to do with our borders, which has been something that's really been very, very topical, and obviously people are feeling very, very engaged and worried or angry even about the free movements of people. Jupiter can be about people moving around, and of course the sign of Cancer can be about the home. So that's interesting, but right up there on that 10th house. So I think that we are going to see a lot of conversations over the next few weeks about our sense of security, and Jupiter can also be about philosophy, so dogmas, to be honest. And if we go to the bottom of the chart, we can see the collective of Venus, the Sun and the Moon are in house 3, so that's very Gemini-like. So quick communications. We have Neptune in 6, we have Saturn in 5. Saturn at 5 at Christmas time. Cheers for that. This of course is based on Greenwich Universal and the Prime Meridian, but that's saying that this might not be quite as jolly as we'd like. So how do we deal with that? I think it's all, as I mentioned before, about expectations, and if we have reasonable expectations, that's going to work better. You can see that Uranus flips into house 8, and house 8 can be about shared finances, investments, the stock market, equities, anything to do with legacies and inheritances. But again, that scorpionic type 8th house can see revelations. So more revelations coming through the media, the 3rd house where that Sagittarius energy is. So we can expect more information to come into the open. But I think the Sun and the Moon squaring Neptune, for me, is very much about energy. So as much as we would like to perhaps move around, travel off to see people, we can do it, but we just need to be aware that there may be times when suddenly we can feel absolutely totally exhausted. And again, if we just give ourselves permission to go and have a rest, a bit of a snooze, then we can join in again. But just be aware it may be our own inner stuff, past issues that aren't processed. Sagittarius energy can at times be so resoundingly determined to be on the front foot and jolly, it can push to one side the more sensitive dimension. I don't think we should do that. So I think we should all be truth seekers, but all have those rather realistic ideas that as much as this can be a fun period of the year, at times for other people it can be very, very challenging. So our communications, the more benevolent energies of Sagittarius is asking us to be in touch perhaps with those who are less fortunate, perhaps more isolated and so forth, and that's a great way we can work with this energy. I'm now going to go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces to give you a flavour of what to expect, but please check out your year 2026 personal forecast, totally unique to you, underneath this video, along with your life roadmap report, and there's 30% off. Thank you. So Aries, this is a brilliant new moon for you to plan or action to get away from it all. And if that is in your thinking, what's not to like? But it will be important to do the planning carefully because of that energy of Saturn and Neptune in your 12th house. Because if something didn't quite go as you would like, I feel it could suddenly just drain you of all your vitality. But if you are up to liberate yourself from what has been perhaps a little bit of a tough year for many of us, then this is a great opportunity. All that energy in your fellow fire sign is very much about initiative. It's about passion. You know, if it's spending time with people in a jovial, social way where you can let your hair down, or it is doing something where you're physically moving around, traveling, then that can provide a lot of excitement. But I think if there is a relationship challenge going on at the present time, and there is a tender matter that's not quite being grappled with, and you are feeling frustrated with that, I think a much more forthright side of your nature could come out. Because the archetype of Aries people is that you can be quite blunt. I don't buy that. There's plenty of Aries people with Piscean energy in their natal charts, and there's others with Taurus energy who like to keep things very steady Eddie. But even if you are someone who does like things to be pretty dynamic, I think there are times in our lives when things don't go to plan, and you know, understandably we all go through challenges, disappointments and upsets. And I think Saturn and Neptune, but also the North Node, are all asking you in the last part of their journey before they return to your sign, which culminates fully with Saturn returning on the 14th of February and then coming into the conjunction on the 18th. I think this is a period when you could feel much more melancholy at times. You could feel a much greater connection to things that didn't quite work out in your past. So if you're feeling very nostalgic and you're in the mood for a get together with old colleagues or old friends, that wouldn't be a surprise. But equally, if there are still old emotional pains that do finally need to be released, I think this would be a good time to look at it. But Saturn, of course, can be very stubborn, just like we can. We can be very attached to things. Our point of view on a situation, particularly if we feel there's been an injustice, the sign of Sagittarius can be about justice. So your desire for your side of the story can be very, very strong. But for all of us, if we hold on to things, and we've all done it, that actually elongates the suffering for us, as much as we do feel there has been an unfairness. So there's lots of different strands with this particular new moon, but if you do find yourself at some point over the next month feeling much more reflective, quiet, and you want some time to yourself, remember Sagittarius energy can be about space. Take it, why not? But please check out your year 2026 personal forecast, totally unique to you, underneath this video, along with your life roadmap report, and there's 30% off. Thank you. So Taurus, it's an intriguing new moon for you because new moons can be about what we'd like, can't they? And the combination of the sun and the moon collaborating together, we get a blend of their positivity and the fact that your ruler Venus is so closely aligned to them. If you are in a loving relationship, I think it could be very close over the festivities. But of course Sagittarius can be where we want to liberate ourselves from something. And because Uranus in your sign is about you needing to be uniquely you, and that's handling in a challenging way to that combination of the sun and the moon and Venus, a tiny bit broader. If you are in a relationship where you'd like it to be all in, you're very committed, but the other person isn't, or perhaps there are some politics, perhaps it's to do with differences of opinion over the long-term future, that's coming from Saturn and Neptune, that can in a way prevent the closeness and even intimacy that the combination of the Sun, Moon and Venus in your 8th house can bring for you. So I think there's going to be a lot of frank discussions over these festivities for a lot of people, and I think things can come into the open that may be a little tender, but they need to. But just know that because we now have Mars, the planet of action in the freedom loving 9th, it's going to be joined by the Sun the day after this event as he moves into the sign of Capricorn, and then joined by Venus, your ruler, on the 24th. If you have really given it everything to a situation, even around a financial matter or a collaboration, and it's not really working for you, that energy of Sagittarius, which can be about being more spontaneous, doing things much more in the moment and making it happen quickly, if you're not really feeling that what you want to put in is being matched by someone you're trying to connect to, you may decide, even at this tender part of the year, that you will break away. And even if it's something that you finally do early in the new year, it may be something that's in the back of your mind. So I think you're a bit more in a, I want it all. I want total investment. I want someone to share my passion in a very intense way. Or if I'm not feeling it with someone I'm with, it may be you are the person who makes that executive decision to do your own thing. But please check out your year 2026 personal forecast, totally unique to you, underneath this video, along with your life roadmap report, and there's 30% off. Thank you. So Gemini, to be honest, of all the zodiac signs, I feel that this new moon could be most positive for you, but it's not without its potential gotchas. And for you, that gotcha comes from Uranus. We have the collection, including your ruler, in the sign of Sagittarius, which for you is house 7. So that can be about collaboration, cooperation, meeting people halfway. But the more restraining energy of Saturn and the more distorting energy of Neptune suggests when it comes to professional relationships, or if there is a bit of a shift in terms of the power dynamic in an existing tie, that may be where there's a pinch point. And Uranus, because it's buried away now again, since it reversed out of your sign, it's back into house 12. So something could suddenly come into the open, a point of view, a perspective. Perhaps it's going to be your own sudden flash of seeing something in a different way. But if you are footloose and fancy free and you would like to have some kind of romance over the festivities, I actually think it could be really quite exciting, not just because of this new moon, but because we already have Mars, the planet of desire, to be joined by the Sun tomorrow, and then Venus, the planet of relating, all pitching into your 8th house. That can be hot. So if you do want to get up close and personal to someone, the stars are certainly aligning for you. But if you're in a relationship where it feels that someone wants to be the boss and you don't like that, or you want to assert yourself and the other person resists that, or it's around a professional relationship with no amount of diplomacy, or trying to lean into the needs of the person that's proving awkward, that could see you suddenly need to release quite a lot of frustration, and that can come from Uranus. So if you are a festive party at work and someone has been really quite awkward, just be aware that something could bubble up if you feel that your capacity to understand it from their viewpoint is just being totally scorned and ignored. That could just ignite a real flash of frustration and perhaps some straight talking. But please check out your year 2026 personal forecast, totally unique to you, underneath this video, along with your life roadmap report, and there's 30% off. Thank you. So this Cancer is a new moon, which is very much about practicalities, which may sound as dull as ditch water at the time of the year when, at least at some point, we'd like to be a little more jolly. But you know, there is a method in the heavens, so-called madness, because 6th house energy can also be about getting ordered. So if you do have last minute presents to get, cards to write, rooms to manoeuvre around to allow visitors, this is a new moon that supports that in a helpful way. I think at a deeper level within you, because Saturn and Neptune are in freedom loving parts of your chart, and the new moon is very much about obligations. If you are in a situation where it always seems to fall to you, whether it's domestically, within the family, professionally, some resentment can come up from that. And Sagittarius can be outspoken, it can also be a truth seeker, but it can also be an agent for change. So if you're not really enjoying your job, for example, at the moment, or you feel you could be a bit fitter or a bit more virtuous about your diet, even though we are going to have the cluster of energy developing in Capricorn by the end of the year, very much about your relationship situation, which is exciting, I think, and I think relationships could be an area of real potential for you in the new year. But I think the backdrop of this energy does take us into the early part of 2026, and if there is something that you're keen to change and get working a bit more efficiently, whether it's just on the domestic front, whether it is making some tweaks to what you eat and drink, whether it is about reminding people of their responsibility to pitch in and help with the domestic chores, all of these can come into focus. But let's just briefly consider the energy of Uranus. So for you, Uranus is back in the part of your chart which is very much about your higher ideals, and Uranus can be quite outspoken. Uranus can also be quite restless, so if you aren't feeling that your dedication, your application, your responsibility, your attention to detail has really been appreciated as much as it could be, the fact that Jupiter is in your sign, despite the fact that he is in a retrograde, could see you contemplating or discussing over the festivities some new approaches which can perhaps put you more in touch with what really can inject a sense of passion and enthusiasm into the parts of life that we all have. Work, you know, picking the kids up, making sure that things run in a fairly well ordered way. But if it has become all a little bit oppressive of late, Sagittarius can be about knowledge, and maybe some conversations you can have can give you some fresh ideas about how to liberate yourself a little bit more from the daily drudgery. But please check out your year 2026 personal forecast, totally unique to you, underneath this video, along with your life roadmap report, and there's 30% off. Thank you. So Leo, this event is your 5th solar house. So that's very much an echo of Leonian energy, as I mentioned in the introduction. Also in the 3rd decan of Sagittarius is sub-ruled by the Sun, your glorious ruler. And the Sun and the Moon aligning together brings the best of both their qualities to bear. So there's a lot to like about this, and the 5th house is where we can manifest our charisma, our personality power, but also our love of fun and pleasure and enjoyment to the absolute max. And because Mercury and Venus are in the mix too, there's a lot for you to harness here and harvest. You can often get a great deal of enjoyment from using your enthusiasm, your warmth, your affection to bring events to life. Whether it's encouraging your kids with their pursuits, whether it's to do with a small gathering of friends, whether it is something that's more out there, interactive and meeting up with friends. So a playful vibe, but we do need to be mindful of Saturn and Neptune. They're in house 8. House 8 is complex, and over the last couple of years, Saturn, for the most part, has been asking some big questions about your deepest connections, maybe your devotions, maybe even your investments, and it may not have all gone to plan. And also the 5th house of Sagittarius can be about speculation, risk. So if you are thinking about having a punt or trying over the holiday period to do some kind of sideline, which could be remunerative for you, it may well work for sure, but Saturn suggests you really check the details. Neptune can also make it more difficult to get a clear picture. It's a very elusive influence indeed. Then again, it may be around your love relationship. If you've got one, if a partner is a bit grumpy, doesn't find the festivities is their favourite time, that could be a bit testing and challenging. Or if it's something deeper in terms of possessiveness, control, jealousy, those energies could show up on this event too, unfortunately. And Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, does continue his journey through to the end of June in a much more spiritual part of your chart, and you have an opportunity through to them to grow your understanding of situations, and that is forging a challenging link to Venus. So there may be something that you are reluctant to look at. It may be that you're not quite chiming with someone in a more sensitive way. That could be a factor. And then with Uranus in your work situation, if you're wanting to be more creative, show more flair and artistry, and that's being blocked or inhibited by a current employment situation, I think you could find that over the holidays you're thinking very carefully about where you can use your energies most effectively but also most productively. But please check out your year 2026 personal forecast, totally unique to you, underneath this video, along with your life roadmap report, and there's 30% off. Thank you. So Virgo, it's an interesting new moon because the cluster of energy, including your ruler in house 4, is about how we feel about things. It's our inner world. But the sign of Sagittarius is very bubbly and enthusiastic. Now, if you have very good family or extended family relationships, the excitement about getting together with people could be palpable with this event. But what about the potential challenges? Because Saturn and Neptune together, mainly over the last couple of years, may have highlighted some challenges around interactions, whether you've needed to set your boundaries, or whether you've met someone really significant, or maybe someone has faded away, Neptune, or someone's being disappointing, or not quite manifested in reality, Saturn, what they appeared to be, Neptune. So it's been a hot topic for you, Celestia, over the last couple of years, is relationships. But it doesn't have to just be emotional or intimate relationships. It can be ties of any kind. And if you've really worked hard at that, and the build up to Christmas in this, a relative that you know is perhaps a little testing at times, you could be bracing yourself, and that wouldn't be a surprise. And because Jupiter, the planet of plenty, the ruler of Sagittarius, is in a very friendly part of your chart, rightly you're wanting the connection that's heartfelt, that's genuine. So just be aware that someone could show themselves in not quite the way you would like. That said, soon after this event, tomorrow, Sun moves into Capricorn, joined up by Venus on the 24th. Now they're going to be afflicted initially by Saturn and Neptune too, but that last week of this year can be very joyful, very pleasurable, very fun-loving for you if you're minded to get together with others. However, your preference is for quiet time, a more traditional festive period, that's there for you as well. But just be aware there could be a little bit of tension around quite a close relationship. But please check out your year 2026 personal forecast, totally unique to you, underneath this video, along with your life roadmap report, and there's 30% off. Thank you. So Libra, you'll likely find that the Sagittarius energy that's been very much to the fore of late is going to be heightened because of the recent arrival of Mercury back in this sign, which can give you a desire for lots of different connections, mixing and mingling, perfect for the festivities. But if there are some practical issues that you're trying to juggle as well, those could feel a bit oppressive. That's Saturn and Neptune leaning into the position of the Sun and the Moon and Venus too. So what you're wanting really is to be a bit more fluid. I think fixed plans might not work for you quite so well. Don't tie yourself down with obligations that don't really feel right. So someone invites you around and you're not quite sure, you need to bear that in mind. And also from a professional viewpoint, if you are wanting to pitch your sights high in the new year, the fact that Jupiter is in the part of your chart to do with your ambitions, but linking to your ruler, there may be a very upbeat conversation that you're going to enjoy, which gives you a lot of positive thoughts as you go into Christmas week itself. Then you may find yourself being a bit quieter, but a lot of bubbly energy is to the fore on this particular event, and therefore I think it's important not to let your passion be too much challenged by practicality. So if you can, give yourself a bit of space, check out of a few things, give yourself a chance to just go with the flow a little bit is the best way to use this particular lunation. But please check out your year 2026 personal forecast, totally unique to you, underneath this video, along with your life roadmap report, and there's 30% off. Thank you. Scorpio, this is a new moon which emphasizes your life foundations, your approach to your values, everyday money, and because Venus, which is very much about everyday money, is in residence too, you may have had a slice of unexpected good fortune. I truly hope so. But there is the potential with this particular new moon to be somewhat more extravagant, but it could just be about what you eat and drink. It's a time of the year when we attend functions or gatherings, and there are those lovely foods and tempting goodies, and it may be difficult for you to resist. So if you have been on quite a resolute diet plan, expect that to be tested over the next few weeks. But seriously, with Jupiter, the planet of fortune, in a square with Venus, if you are feeling generous, you may want to be wholehearted around giving gifts. Just be aware, however, if you have met someone relatively recently, Saturn and Neptune in the 5th house of your chart can be to do with romance and affection. Square it off to the new moon, but also Venus. So I'm not suggesting that you should be too cautious, but I think a grand gesture is probably best avoided. Now, when it comes to shared finances, because of Uranus being back in your 7th house in a jarring angle to the position of this lunation, if there are differences of opinion over the festive budget, that could show up, unfortunately. But I think if you have been working on something that's more creative and important to you as an individual, as Mercury has zigzagged out of your sign into Sagittarius, back to yours, back to Sagittarius, if you have gone through some frustrations, you could actually see some progress developing for you over the next 3 or 4 weeks. This will be helped most by very effective communication, but by the end of this year, I can almost guarantee you're going to have a very serious but important conversation that could prove very fortunate for you. But please check out your year 2026 personal forecast, totally unique to you, underneath this video, along with your life roadmap report, and there's 30% off. Thank you. So Sagittarius, the interesting thing about your annual new moon is that it comes so late in the journey of the sun through your zodiac sign. So you've had a real opportunity over the last 4 weeks to be dynamic, to be on the front foot. Mercury has returned to you, bringing you more into the moment. If an idea has been a bit stuck, it can now speed up. You also have Venus with you, which is adding to your allure. New moons are a great chance for us to recast our identity in some way, but you may have been doing that anyway. But don't be surprised if you find people gravitating towards you over the holidays. Your individual magic and charisma are definitely burnished. It's just that Saturn and Neptune are saying if there are any inner issues you're still working on or healing, they could just be a little bit inhibiting for you. Now, Uranus is in the part of your chart to do with practicalities, and over the last 7 years it may have been quite difficult to get routines going. But if you are a very enterprising person, and Sagittarius often are, I think this particular new moon gives you a lot of support to go for something which helps you to manifest your individuality, your creativity and flair. But the way you go about it can still be unique in terms of managing your time. You do like space and freedom. You don't necessarily like quite a metronomic structure. That can be a little bit confining for you. So just know that if you do need to break free of something in order to invest in what makes you so individual, that requires some personal confidence. And because Jupiter, your ruler, is in the part of your situation to do with potentially earning more money right through to the end of June in 2026, a balance of what you do in that very thrusting, dynamic way, which is very much you, with being mindful of what the return can be for you and whether it feels right, Saturn and Neptune. Well, if you're taking all of that into account and prepared for some kind of change in your everyday structure, this is a very positive new moon for you. But please check out your year 2026 personal forecast, totally unique to you, underneath this video, along with your life roadmap report, and there's 30% off. Thank you. So Capricorn, this new moon for you is house 12. 12th house new moons can be a little more testing. The 12th house is where we can feel quieter, more reflective, sometimes melancholic. It can be where we're thinking back to people who are no longer with us, so we can feel hugely nostalgic. You may be getting together with people from your past. The angle of your ruler Saturn to this event and the dreamy drifting energy of Neptune does just suggest, however, if you're invited to a function or to go out with a group of people that you're not really quite sure about, perhaps people that may not be quite your celestial cup of tea, if your instinct tells you not to do it, listen to that. You may feel just a bit more vulnerable and sensitive than usual. Now all that's going to shift very quickly with the arrival of the Sun in your sign, but that needs to shrug off Saturn and Neptune too. And then we have Venus arriving in your sign on Christmas Eve. I think by Christmas Day itself and the last week of this year, you're going to be moving into a much more dynamic energy. So if you do find yourself a little bit more tentative about joining in, don't beat yourself up. But with Jupiter in the part of your scope to do with connections, if you have a connection where you do feel there is that trust, there is that simpatico, where emotionally you feel you're chiming, perhaps around your ideas too, then this could be a time when you become much more aware of a deep, meaningful, sincere connection. So I don't think this is the best of new moons for fair weather friendships, to be honest, but for those that are around solid citizens who really are genuine, absolutely lovely. And it does evoke some of the more traditional energies of Christmas time, which is not necessarily about going out and being more playful, but perhaps enjoying the carols, being mindful of those who might be on their own or less fortunate, stuff like that. And you can be very attentive and aware of supporting someone like that. But please check out your year 2026 personal forecast, totally unique to you, underneath this video, along with your life roadmap report, and there's 30% off. Thank you. So Aquarius, your Sagittarius new moon is intriguing because Aquarius and Sagittarius people do have some commonalities. You can both be very independent minded, perhaps a little bit to the point if you feel very strongly about something, freedom lovers, and all those qualities can be amplified over the next month. But the 11th house is also where we think about our long-term future. And of course, at the end of each year, we can be nostalgic, but for many of us, we are also turning our mind to what the new year can bring. But because the Sun speeds into Capricorn the day after this event, then we have Venus playing catch up with the Sun and also Mars. Could find yourself, particularly from Christmas to New Year, although there may be some invitations, you probably will be a bit picky about which ones you choose to attend. But if you do like fraternity, if you are a very bubbly person who really loves to get together with lots of people, this is a fantastic new moon for you. But I think in terms of thinking about that future, if there is a plan you've got, I think the viability from a financial viewpoint is going to be at the heart of your thinking because of your traditional ruler Saturn and Neptune in house 2 in a jarring right angle, not just with the Sun and the Moon in Neptune's case and Saturn, but with Saturn particularly on Venus. So if there is a friend or a group of people that you have had a connection with, could be a little bit tested over the next month. But if you're thinking longer term, it's not just about the money, it's about your values. And that's something that a lot of Aquarius people hold dear. And because your modern ruler Uranus is also involved in this event and also clashing with the Sun and the Moon position, I feel that that's about your home and emotional life. So if something isn't working with you in terms of your friendship, your social interaction, your network, you could feel quite restless. And then as we have the Capricorn energy by the end of the year, a lot of food for thought. So I think some relationships which are not quite as close as they could be could lose a little bit of sparkle. But if you're someone who's resolutely wanting to pitch yourself into the festive world, a great one. There could be someone, if you're single, that you know or gets introduced to you, and there could be a connection for sure. But please check out your year 2026 personal forecast, totally unique to you, underneath this video, along with your life roadmap report, and there's 30% off. Thank you. So Pisces, new moon energies last for a month. And because that month takes us into the new year, there's a bit of a crossover. The sign of Sagittarius can be where we want to be a bit freer, flow with things, but for you it's the 10th house, it's your connection to the world. So Sagittarius energy here could be about how you can amplify your efforts around your talents to raise your profile, and that could be through media, technology, social interaction online. All those things can be important if you're really wanting to make a big breakthrough around your career or an ambition or goal. But we are going to have, by the end of the year, a much more sociable set of influences. So I think the two can merge. You may spend some time, understandably, getting together with people you work with or you know through your professional connections, and that could be valuable to you. But the combination of Saturn and Neptune in your zodiac sign is something we do need to be mindful of. So if you have felt you've not quite had the get-go around a goal that you would like, it may be because they've been testing your energy, your vitality, your enthusiasm, or making you perhaps a little too cautious, or wanting for the exact perfect situation to manifest itself. I think just if you are looking for a job, try to be as visible as possible. And your warmth and friendliness can be very helpful too. But what Saturn particularly has done over the last couple of years has made you much more aware of what you don't want to do. And don't compromise on that, but where you can see some flexibility, do be open to that, because the 10th house is how you're perceived and received by the wider world. And if you can flex and you're not too prescriptive, if you are looking for a job, for example, that's going to increase your chances hugely. Also, if your goals and ambitions lie outside of work, a great new moon to actually see something crystallized that you've been working hard towards, and it may do so even before the end of the year. But please check out your year 2026 personal forecast, totally unique to you, underneath this video, along with your life roadmap report, and there's 30% off. Thank you.